So I met this chick at the bar.
Yeah?
Oh, she was hot. She was just like, hey,
man,
you just want to
awesome.
And I was like, yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
CIB.
Oh.
Hey, where'd you earn that CIB at?
The PX? What? It's not stolen valor. I bought it with my... Oh!
I hope everybody enjoyed that intro. Special thanks to Only Frauds and Scotto. You guys are amazing. I am very flattered that you wanted to make that for me. And I love it. I love it. And today we got Navy Techs with us.
Hey, yo.
Most of you all know him. He's an ex-Wrangler cult member.
Yeah.
And he didn't drink the Kool-Aid. So I want to talk a little bit about what went on last night. There was a lot of crazy shit going on last night with Wrangler. And I want to go over a little bit of that. I'm going to, just briefly touch on his phony military claims again, as I'm going to do every Thursday. It's the first thing I'm going to do. And then about some of the shit that went on last night. And then I want to talk about you and your Navy career and what you did, where you been, who you done, and all that good stuff. Because it's, everybody really enjoys that I bring other veterans on here and we talk about their career. And everybody's got different stories, but even though the stories are different, they're kind of the same for all of us. We can relate to them.
Right.
If that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, Kaiser, over a decade, 13 years, Staff Sergeant, Ranger, MP, 2 Purple Hearts.
It's crazy.
And it's on and on and on. And every one of those videos has been archived. Every time he has talked about his fake military career, it's been archived.
Yep.
And I brought the receipts. Now I've seen people that have made comments that I made those documents up on a Google Drive or some shit.
Wow.
Guys, send an email to the Alabama National Guard, their FOIA person, and tell them you would like Michael Kaiser's military records under a Freedom of Information Act request. And guess what? You're going to get the same documents I've got. And, I don't know what to tell you. You guys want to, perpetrate that I'm out there creating these documents. First off, it's a federal offense to falsify official government documents. And I'm not going to do that. I hold myself well above that. But 13 years, the 2 Purple Hearts, the lies. Every time his lips move, he's lying, along with all of his criminal background, which last night he was talking about that guy, Chris, and something that happened 25 years ago. And, Wrangler, just a couple of years ago, he got locked up on felonies, and he's done more time in prison than Chris has, or in jail. And I don't know how that's going to work out. If he gets sentenced to any time in Meade County, Kentucky, they really can't have him in the Meade County jail, not with the numbnuts that runs the place being on YouTube and disseminating information to the likes of a convicted felon with 5 open felonies and the only suspect in a capital murder. So, I didn't watch him last night, but I watched him this morning. I know David Finkel had a live going, and he just basically rebroadcast it. And then Only Frauds had one, him and Scotto, and they had a few people pop in. That firefighter 936, that guy's he's a freaking gem, isn't he?
Oh God.
and he
Talk
was in
about
the
Kool-Aid
Navy
drinker.
on top of it.
Oh
So
Lord.
he doesn't care. Well, it was peacetime, um, which that's not a big deal to me. If you served, you served, and thank you for your service there, firefighter, volunteer firefighter. Because that's he admitted that he put that in the chat that he
Yep.
was a volunteer firefighter. So he's what we like to call in the law enforcement uh, community a whacker. Um, the, these are the guys that put lights all over their car and drive 85 to the fire station for a brush fire. So yeah, that's what we call it. That or hose beaters. We call them that too. And I could say that because I've been on both sides. I was a volunteer fireman. I worked as a firefighter during my break in service in Savannah, Georgia, with Southside Fire Department. I was also an EMT, and I rose to the level of paramedic. And
Oh
I let
nice.
my license expire in like 2004. And that was right as I went back on active duty from my guard time and then deployed again. So I wanted to look at I'm going to go ahead and share the Social Blade because it's insanity. Wait a minute here. Yeah, there we go. So it's just insanity what's going. Wait a minute, that's the wrong one. That is the wrong one. Let me share my other screen. That way I can see what's going on. Yeah, it's my first day doing this. There we go. That's better. Now I can see both of what's going on and I can bring this up. So videos for the last 30 days, video views, 667,000 views. There are channels that have, 500,000 subscribers that don't get those type of views in a month.
Wow.
It's crazy. And then as you go down through here, you look at his subscribers, you know, 60, 30, 50, 30, 30, 70, 40, 30, 10, and he's getting 20, 30, 40,000 views. So I can only imagine how much money that's costing him.
It's gotta be
I
more than
just,
he's making.
oh yeah, yeah. He's spending his welfare money well, I'm sure. 22,242. That was from yesterday. And he had like 20,000 live viewers,
Yep.
but it's only showing like for Wednesday, it's only showing 10,000 here. Now, my guess is everybody was saying he went private. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if he did or not. I don't know if maybe YouTube. Uh, I don't know if maybe YouTube caught on to the fact that he had 20,000 people watching his piddly ass channel.
And it was weird too, because it went from like 400 to 500, then all of a sudden jumped to like 20,000.
Yeah, it was insanity. And everybody was commenting about it. And I mean, on OnlyFans, I watched pretty much the whole stream they did this morning while I was sitting here drinking my coffee and playing on my game computer. And I listened to the whole thing and watching some of there are some whack jobs that are followers of Wrangler. And,
Yes.
and it all boils down to the frauded or bad. They don't give a shit what Wrangler's done or did, or will uh, soon be happening. Because
Exactly.
I know Wally got on there and talked a little bit about what's going on with the cold case stuff, and
Hmm.
he's not going to say a whole lot because it's ongoing, but it's something's going to happen. And that numbnuts firefighter was like, "Oh, how many years ago was that?" It doesn't matter. It's a capital murder charge. There's no
Yeah.
statute of limitations. It's he was not found not guilty, or it was not dismissed due to lack of evidence or anything like that. There was some errors between the charging documents and the indictment and blah, blah, blah. So I'm sure they're going to get all that figured out, and they'll probably re-indict. And hopefully, like I said, Kaiser for prison 2024. That's my deal. So
I
let me
agree.
just take a quick look in the chat and welcome who's here. We got a bunch of people here. 40 some odd people in here on a
Awesome.
Thursday at lunchtime, right before lunchtime. I got to scroll way up because they're off the hook in the fucking chat as usual. Corscato, keeping the swine. Parsons, Wally, Kittle, 23. Spider Dog, long time. Highest Priestess. Woodrow, Wally, again. Greg. Marlon, Rebecca, Kim, Tuscany, Jerry, and 81 USMC. Next week, I'm having a Marine on, and all of the Marine guys will probably enjoy this. He's a guy I met through gaming. He runs a gaming server for Hell Let Loose game, and he's prior Staff Sergeant Marine, and he runs a nonprofit for veterans. And
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
they teach scuba diving and take the guys out on excursions. So I'm going to have him on next week. I'm really looking forward to that because he has nothing to do with any of this shit. And I'm going to ask his opinion about what he thinks about Stolen Valor, because he's asked me if I could help him out vetting some of the people, because he says he gets some guys with some really outlandish bullshit claims trying to get
Yeah.
these free classes and free trips and that kind of shit.
Does he ever gone to Guantanamo Bay? Because I remember my ex-wife we met in Gitmo, right? And
Yep.
there was a group that came down there because they do obviously a lot of scuba diving in Gitmo. And I remember she was talking about a group that came down there that took like a group of veterans down there to go scuba diving.
Could be. We'll have to find out. I'll have to ask him. But he's a super nice guy, and I'm really looking forward to getting him on here. David Finkel's in there. Jammin's in there. All right. If I miss you, I'm sorry. Long time. I think I got pretty much most of the folks that are in here. Slow Burner, Freedom Fighter. I mean, we do have the best chat that is shared among many channels. No mods. Parsons 122. I'm just looking through, just seeing if there's anybody interesting.
Stone Vet cracks me up. I love it when he does it. He's like, "We have no bouncers at this bar, but the bartender may fight you."
Yeah. I won't fight you. I Burnsy's in there. James K. Man, lots of people this morning.
Wally says, "Is it Nick Kephalitis?" I'm assuming he's talking about the Marine you're talking about.
You know what? I don't even know his name. I know him by Goon. That's what he goes by on the server. And he sent me this really huge mouse mat that goes underneath my game and stuff over here. And it's got a big staff sergeant rank on it with cross crayons. So him having that to send out to me it just tells me that he's pretty squared away. Scott Amo.
Yeah, Wally says Nick runs a veterans fishing and a scuba gig.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Wally. I'll find out though. Danny. All right. So we talked a little bit about Kaiser. We went over Kaiser's the live stream. Like I said, I really think that his live stream did what it did because YouTube figured out that there's no way that fucker had 20,000 people watching. Those were
Exactly.
paid views.
Yep.
And I don't think he he might have privatized it because yet again he doxed people, and this
Oh
time with
yeah.
Social
Social security
Security
numbers.
numbers.
Yep.
So yeah, um,
From what I understand, if I remember correctly, last night, because they were talking about it on stream, is that the stream ended, like he actually ended the stream, and then all of a sudden privated it. So he actually did finish his stream, and then he privated it. So I don't know if he privated it or if YouTube did it, but apparently he did end the stream. So it wasn't an abrupt thing.
okay, so it didn't like get cut off in the middle. All right, well
No,
maybe he
no.
figured out that oh shit, we showed some stuff that we shouldn't have. Unfortunately, it is YouTube, it is the internet, and it is forever.
Dickbag says it's back up.
Dickbag, do you know if he edited out those sections? That would be the question. Still visible in his posted stream.
Lord.
Can't fix stupid. You can muffle it with duct tape, but you can't fix it.
Oh, Ron Watt was correct.
I just he is just a real piece of work. Well, if he ends up back behind bars, it'll be a good thing. People
Yeah.
will be somewhat safe from his nonsense.
Oh, did you see where supposedly he had a sling on his was it left arm?
Yeah, I saw that, and I think that's one of his cult members there made a post that said he separated his shoulder. I don't know if he fell out of the neighbor's window after stealing some perks or what, but
I was just wondering if he shot himself again.
well, he'll just he'll do what he did last time. He did that poor pitiful me video there
Oh God.
where he talks about he was going to commit suicide and missed.
God, oh man, that pissed me off when he did that. Oh,
Wow, that's surprising that they won't do anything about that. Because, all right, so let me explain this in regards to people's personal identifying information, such as social security numbers and stuff like that. It's not illegal to have that or acquire that. You can acquire a lot of that stuff through paid services. However, you must safeguard that information. If you don't safeguard it, you can be, I don't know if there is a charge for that. I guess I don't even know if there's a charge for that in Massachusetts. I'll have to look it up. If you publicly give out someone's social security number, uh, because that is personal identifying information that should not be out there in the public. Yeah, and Dick Bag's talking about. I just love saying Dick Bag. He paid for views and fucked something up. However, I guess third parties can pay for views on someone else's stream. So not the Well, I could see where his cult members may buy him, but I don't think anybody that's trying to get him taken down would. I
I
wouldn't
would
waste
never
my
spend money
money.
on that guy. Nope.
I wouldn't piss on his head if his hair was on fire. Yes, David, it is against YouTube community guidelines. That's why I'm really surprised that that YouTube didn't want to do anything about it.
Well, I think they have to be made aware of it. Like, I don't think the algorithm picks up on him doing that. Someone has to let them know. Like, hey,
Well,
by the way, this guy's
uh,
showing socials and stuff.
Bernsey said he did, and they said that it has to be one of the people whose information was released.
Oh, okay. Because if it's the one I'm thinking about, he's shown this before. He's talked about this before. Where it was it's Chris, his ex girlfriend, and the other guy that was involved in that whole incident where he got supposedly got the DV guilty plea, right? And he's either shown it before or he's talked about it before. Because I remember this is not the first time he's brought this up with their socials.
Yeah, there was another one. Well, he didn't do it with a social, but I mean,
Yeah,
uh, Tiffany, is that girl's name? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Tiffany. I mean, he blasted her her
Yep.
her drug test results out from a few years back. Somebody bought Chili up to 100K to get him audited for his play button, thinking it would term his channel. Yeah, could that?
Good Lord.
I don't know. This whole YouTube thing is pretty nuts. Kimmy bought them and botched it. And that's from Ted Wrangler, the 25-year-old gay son of Wrangler.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
stepson. Well, they're not married, so he's technically nobody to him. Really can't even consider him a stepson. Really.
That's just everything he does is a lie. It's so crazy.
And the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is what gets me. All of his followers are like, "Well, this stuff about Wrangler was years ago. Leave it alone." Blah blah blah. And then he brings something up that's 25 years old on this guy Chris.
Yep.
It's like, really?
And it wasn't years ago. I mean, it was like 2 years ago because it was like 2022 was one of his last charges when he broke into his former place of work. The Stone Vet talks about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's complete and total insanity. So, pretty much enough about this bullshit because it just makes me crazy. And I mean, a lot of people are like, "Well, who gives a shit about stolen valor?" Well, a lot of veterans care about it, and
Yeah,
that's
they
why
do.
I keep the burner turned up on this. Just like I keep the burner turned up on Jeremy DeWitt. He's never ever apologized or came clean about any of his military claims about jumping into Fallujah and having a riser pop and injuring his back and being a special forces major and all this other shit.
Good
Um,
God.
that's why I don't let it die. I haven't done much on him in a long time,
Yeah.
but he's got some new trials coming up. He was the infamous police impersonator in Florida.
Oh yeah, I remember that douche. God, he
Because
deserves to stay in
Florida
prison.
man.
Yeah, right.
Because Florida man. That's why. Uh, but yeah. But enough about this shit. Let's talk about your career. So you're retired Navy,
Yes, yes I am.
and when did you join the Navy?
I joined the Navy March 26th of 2002.
Wow,
Hmm.
stepping up to the plate.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Well, I mean, previously, right before that, what happened in September of the previous year, right? And I had a buddy of mine that joined the Army. He was a Chinook mechanic right after 9/11. And then around early 2002, I was like, well, it's time to join and do something.
What made you choose the Navy?
My dad was in the Navy, and so it was a nice family tradition. Also, the thing is, like a lot of people don't realize though, is that the Navy is one of the only services where your job is guaranteed, right?
Mhm.
So whereas in the Army or the Marine Corps, you're a soldier first, a Marine first, they can literally put you anywhere. But in the Navy, when you sign a contract, you sign up for like a certain job, and
Yep.
so that was one of the things that I chose too.
Well, I mean, the Army is kind of that way. You sign up for a military occupational skill, you can have it put in your contract. Doesn't always mean you're going to get that. Doesn't always mean you're going to stay in that. But
Yep.
that's like I was. I initially I was a military policeman. I worked mainly law and order, which is what they call back then they called it garrison MPs. We were basically the police department on a military installation on a base,
Hmm.
and that was my thing. And then I went into aviation. I did my aviation time after the Gulf War. I got out, did reserve, guard, and then back active. And when I went back active, they were hurting bad for NCOs, MPs. So my guard time, I bounced around a little bit and managed to get back into an MP slot, and then went back active. And because when I got out in '92 when they had the big drawdowns,
Hmm.
and I had almost 14 years. So I managed
Oh
to get
wow,
my last years in to get a full active duty retirement, which worked out great for me.
that's amazing.
So, what was your job in the Navy?
I was known as a cryptologic technician interpretive, which is basically a linguist translator. So we work on it's an intel field aspect of all the cryptological jobs in the Navy are. And so the basically what would happen is I would get stuff through various methods, and I would help translate it and turn it into a product that you could send off to the intel community, and they could use it for various things from I've worked everything from counter narcotics to counterterrorism to counterinsurgency, all that kind of stuff. So,
Interesting.
and
That's
I started off as a Spanish linguist, and then later on in 2012, I became a Persian Farsi linguist.
I'm sorry. What language?
Persian Farsi,
Farsi.
yeah, but they speak in Iran.
Yep. Yep. That's yeah. That's pretty pertinent, especially with the recent drone strike.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yep, I did. And it's so crazy. It's so crazy what's happening right now. Iran's been a threat for a long time, and we just kind of like let them get away with crap, and I can't stand it. It's not the people, it's the government, 100%.
yeah. Yeah. They uh, they should have been dealt with a long time ago.
Agreed.
Um, but other targets pop up and priorities change, and guess what? We're right back dealing with those guys again. So it'd be curious to see where that goes. So did you do? Were you on a ship? Were you land based or shore duty, or how did that all work?
So the way it works for linguists is that we have specific areas of responsibility based on their language, and so you don't permanent party to a ship, but you can deploy on them, right? So when I was so my first duty station was in San Antonio, Texas, and I deployed out of there 7 times, and I've been on aircraft carriers, I've been on Coast Guard cutters, I've been on frigates, destroyers. I've been on 2 submarines, and then like earlier, I did a stint, and from 2000 in 2010, I did a stint in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for about 5 months.
Wow,
Yep.
good old Gitmo.
Yeah. Talk about it. It's a good thing I'm from a small town because that's exactly what Guantanamo Bay is. A small town.
Yeah, I can imagine. Never been there. Never got tasked for that. Um, like I said, as an MP, I was always a garrison MP until my deployments, and then we were basically uh, what they call division support, but we were
Hmm.
actually It was funny when I was in Mosul. We were outside the wire every day training up Iraqi police, and we had the infantry units were guarding the fob. So they all used to give us the finger and shit when we'd be going out the wire, but because they were stuck guarding the gates. So it was kind of a reverse role, just like what you were saying. It wasn't a guarantee what you were going to be doing in the military, as far as the army goes.
Yeah. Well, I had a guy. So the reason I brought that up is because I had a guy when I was going through Persian Forces. So I attended my A school was in Monterey, California. Yeah, I know it hurt how gorgeous that place was at the Defense Language Institute, Foreign Language Center, and so that's where all the military linguists go to get trained up on whatever language you got chosen for. And one of the guys that I went through Persian Farsi with was this specialist in the army, and he had something like he had a very high score, right, on in proficiency when we got done. And his next duty, he got orders to the motor pool.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like I was just like, "What are you guys doing? Like this is an amazing language. Like he's gonna help you a lot." And he sent him to the motor pool.
That's ridiculous. That's a waste of an asset.
100%. And the thing is that the crazy thing is that the army expects him while he's in the motor pool to maintain his language ability, right? So he's got to somehow do it on his own because he's going to get dinged if he doesn't keep his scores up. And I was just like, I don't understand that at all.
That it doesn't sound like the army did it to him. It sounds like his unit did it to him.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, I don't like I said. I was Navy. I didn't know. I understand the Army a little bit because I get to work around you guys for 20 years, but the intricacies of what's going on, I have no clue.
Yeah, it sounds like his unit kind of dicked him, and but then again, they were pulling in so many people in those different specialties that uh, about mid 2000s 2006 2000, well, my last deployment time frame, a lot of the MOSs were getting saturated, um, and they were overstrength at that point, so it was really tough. I was lucky to get promoted to E8, just because there was a lot of people in the MOSs at the time,
Yeah,
and the promotions were very competitive. Of course, all of our stuff at that point is, by um, Department of the Army, the branch office, where they would do a board and they read all your records, look at all your evaluation reports and that kind of stuff, and that's how they make their determination as to who gets promoted into the senior ranks and who doesn't.
yep. Yeah, they do the same thing with us when you go for chief. You got to pass a test, and then if you qualify for the board, and then all your stuff gets sent up there, and they have someone who supposedly is going to be a representative of like all of Intel that goes in there and like explains to people that don't work Intel exactly what you do, right? So
Yeah, because you guys actually test for your promotions, correct?
okay, we test up through like E7. After E7 for like E8 and E9 for like senior chief and master chief, it's just a board. But E7 to make chief to get into that senior rank, you do have one more test, and then your stuff also goes to the board. Prior to that, it's just testing. So unlike the Army, where you guys go in front of a promotion board all the time, for us it starts at the E7 rank. But we don't physically, unlike the Army, we don't physically go in front of the board. They just take our records and send it to a consortium of senior NCOs that look at your record and make a decision.
Yeah, that's what happens in the Army after E6.
Okay.
E6, you stand in front of a board. Usually it's battalion level. I remember I went to my E5 board at Fort Bragg, and Michelle, what happened that day that what happened that day I went to my promotion board at Bragg?
Marine Barracks.
Oh yeah. The Marine Barracks bombing. That morning I had my I had my E5 promotion board. I was the only
Oh
one that
wow.
brought it up under current events. So, needless to say, I kind of,
The other big one was the U-2 shot down over Russia.
but I maxed out the promotion board for my E5. Plus, I got an extra 100 points going from E4 to E5, and an extra 50 points going from E5 to E6 because I was on
Awesome.
airborne status.
My uncle was in the army in the 80s, and he was airborne air assault. And he was stationed in Germany, and he was actually one of the first groups to go over when they had um, the plane that went down in Lockerbie, Scotland.
Oh yeah,
The one that the terrorist bombing that blew up the plane with the altimeter bomb that went
yep.
down in Lockerbie. He was one of the first groups that got deployed over there to secure the area.
Wow.
Yeah, death from above.
Yep. Yep.
Ah,
The devil's in baggy pants.
yep.
So, how about any foreign service land based? I guess.
The only thing I came close to going over, because the problem with the intel is that they're very specific about where they let you go and do stuff, right? So I actually applied to go to Iraq and they turned me down. And so the closest thing I came to it was when I was in Guantanamo Bay. I was in support of an Operation Enduring Freedom, so OEF, while I was over there because we were dealing with the detainees
Yep.
and stuff like that. So that's the closest I came. But I've been to Panama like 6, 7 times because I was down there. I've been outside of Peru, outside Costa Rica on Coast Guard cutters, and so I bounced around a lot. When I became a Persian linguist, I started off my career in Texas, and I spent 8 years in Texas doing linguistics with Spanish. And then I went back with my ex-wife, and we both became Persian linguists, and went from California to Georgia. And so I was landlocked in Georgia the whole time I was there. I was what do you call it, like a operational manager for the missions and stuff over there. And then I got divorced. I went from Georgia to Maryland, which Stone Ben and I talk about this all the time, going to the mothership, which is the headquarters, because we get associated with, when you're a linguist in the military, you're actually work with and work for the NSA. And so I went to the mothership, which is the NSA headquarters in Maryland for 3 years, and then switched back over to a Spanish linguist, came back down to Texas for my final tour, and retired. So
Well, that was good. You retired close to home.
yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to switch back and come back because my family says, like, people keep asking me, like, why do you want to become a cop? And I was, because you and I've talked about this, and part of it was I wanted to come back and be near my family, right? So I was able to switch back and come back to Texas, retire out in Texas, and then move back to my hometown so I could be near my family and help out my parents and my sister and my brother-in-law and my niece and nephew. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And yeah, it's boy, you're in for an eye-opening experience stepping into law enforcement. It's in the military, things are somewhat easy to deal with as far as law enforcement goes. Uh, in the civilian sector, oh my God, it's uh, it's insanity. It's insanity. You have a lot more leeway. There's a lot more officer discretion that you can use,
right.
but just the attitudes people have. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you place somebody under. I'm not under arrest. Oh, yeah, you are.
Yeah, you
Uh,
are. See, the cuffs are
yeah, yeah.
indicative of you being under arrest, right?
It's gonna go one of two ways. And I'm the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet, regardless of what the situation is, until it's time not to be nice.
Right.
And
And
then
that's what I think. Like, you watch some of these fraud videos. The funniest thing is, like, I don't consent to being searched. I'm like, well, nobody does, right?
no, it's not a consensual thing. Yep, it's at that point you don't have a right to that. So
Yep.
you know, it's pretty insane. Well, it's kind of cool how the whole Intel community kind of guys get so involved with YouTube. When you first went on Fraudit Wranglers, or as I like to call him, Fuckwad. I remember seeing you up on one of his streams, and I
Hmm.
was like, "Look, this guy! This guy doesn't know what he's in right now."
Exactly.
That's exactly what we thought. And I know a bunch of people. Did people reach out to you about that?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen her, but there's another YouTube creator named Loki Fish and Slayer.
Hmm.
And she and I became friends because we, met a lot of the same people in the frauditing community. And she reached out to me because at the time I just retired. I got back home. I was dealing with a lot of in real life stuff, right? Like helping the family and then transitioning my stuff over and things like that. And she reached out to me. She's like, "Hey, I know, we become pretty good friends or whatever. You need to like seriously look into what's going on with this Kaiser guy." And I was like, okay. She's like, no, you need to go. And one of the channels that she gave me was yours. And so I went and watched your videos on him. I saw the stuff that Shiz was doing and things like that. And I was just like, holy crap. Because I mean, if you have real life stuff going on, you can't watch YouTube 24/7, right? And so you
Yep.
miss a bunch of stuff. In fact, a lot of the stuff that he did about the claims stuff about his military career were done like prior to me even knowing he existed. So these other panels and stuff that he went on where he claimed to be a ranger and then the Purple Hearts and all this kind of stuff was like before I even knew him. And so, um, yeah, she reached out and some others reached out too. And of course, Richard AT, like he also reached out. But she was the big one to get me to come over and watch your stuff. And when I saw that, that's when, you see me go on Stonevest, with Wally and stuff and talk about this whole thing because it is crazy. I mean, because the funny thing was he would never talk about his military service when I was on panel with him. Like I talk about mine, and he would never talk about. If you're on with another vet and I say something like, "Oh yeah, this one time when I was in Gitmo, we did this and the third," you know, you're gonna go, "Oh yeah, this one time when I was in the Army or whatever, I was in the Marine Corps, we did this," right? Because you can't help it, right? It's almost like it's an imperative, and he
Yeah,
never would do that. So
and I mean, we've kind of showed that just with the two of us talking.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that was kind of crazy. And I never watched the guy. Like I said, Josh sent me a link to him or something, and he
yeah,
says, "Hey, check this guy out." And am I thinking the right thing? And I looked at him and I went, "Oh yeah, this guy's full of shit. He's as full of shit as they come." And
yeah,
then the whole best part about the whole thing was when Frauditor Troll had him on panel, and 2 hours prior to that, I dropped my video when I got my documents back from the Alabama National Guard.
yep,
And man, I mean, Dickbag was holding his feet to the fire during that
yes, he
one,
was, yep.
and doing a great job doing that. And then, I mean, you could see the fucking skid marks where he was trying to get away from that place.
I
He
got
didn't
something
want
else to
nothing
do.
to
I gotta
do with
go.
that.
Yep. And even like in Friday Show was like, hey, let's just watch the video and you can answer these questions, right? Nope, never gonna happen. I told you I had something else I had to do. Yeah, go cry in the corner is what you had to do.
Yeah, and like Dick Bag said, that was the best timing ever. And it's weird how that all worked out, but I attribute that to karma. You know,
Yeah,
uh, karma catches up with you, and it caught up with him. And I think
that's
karma's
another the
going to.
hypocrisy. He keeps calling out karma on everybody else. Oh, I guess she caught you too, brother.
Yeah, he's the biggest liar of all of them.
Yep.
And it just boggles my mind that he has so many loyal followers that that just don't see through the bullshit.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck about any of his followers. He's in it for this
Yes.
because he doesn't have a job, nor will he ever have a real decent job. I don't think. I mean, he doesn't have any skills. Um,
Well, it's not
couldn't
like he
cut it
has
in
any
the
good
military.
references. What are they gonna do? Like call his old work and be like, yeah, he broke in here and stole stuff, so you shouldn't hire him. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. He broke in, ripped us off, and yeah, yeah, and Yeah, it just boggles the mind with all of that shit. It really
Yeah,
does. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm just hoping. Like I said, Kaiser for Prison 2024. I hope that's where it goes.
me too. Me too.
Burnsy's like, I heard Frederick Wrangler's military BS before he was called out. Knew he was full of shit from the first time I heard his military BS stories. Oh, my little thumbs up thing's working. I've got the software that runs my camera, and if I do certain movements, it picks it up, and
That's awesome.
I don't know how to use it. I could sit here and do this all day long, and nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, boop, I get a thumbs up. It's weird. Questions? Come on, guys, throw some questions up here. I got Navy text on.
Yeah,
Big question.
unlike Wrangler, I can actually answer military questions about my career. So
Would you do the Navy again?
yes, yeah, I really enjoyed the Navy. I tell you what, but it's an interesting beast being in Intel because you have two different masters. You had like the what we call the joint side, which is the agency side, and then you have the Navy side, and both of them want 110% out of you all the time, and that was probably the biggest problem because they never talked to each other because they didn't care, right? The Navy wanted what the Navy wants, and the agency wanted what the agency wanted, and that was probably the biggest issue that I had. But I loved it. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Let's see, Burns. Yes, I did retire from JBSA. Yep, which is Joint Base San Antonio. Dick Bag Patrol. What did? Oh, my dad was actually a dental tech. He did 4 years in the Navy from 72 to 76, and he was a dental tech. He was stationed in Pensacola, Florida.
Woodrow, I'm not sure who you asking. Did you meet Brigadier General Zanetti or Lieutenant Colonel Judkins? Neither
Oh,
one of those
neither
names are
one.
familiar to me.
Me either. I met a couple of Dernses with like director of the NSAs. So I met oh my God, I can't remember the names right now, but I met one the Air Force general that was in when I first joined. He was a 3-star, and then you had the 4 stars, Army and Navy admirals that were in.
I met more generals going to functions with my wife. She was a Department of the Army civilian,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she was she was a dental tech for years and years,
Oh
and then
wow.
got into the then she worked for the Army Reserve full time as a Department of the Army civilian, doing their family readiness and then their medical readiness. And we'd go to functions, and I mean, I'd meet more generals and full bird colonels and that stuff in the medical field because let's face it, most of them are, if they're doctors when they come in, they start off as a captain, and you get a lot of high ranking people in the medical fields. That's the only way to keep them, really.
Oh, okay. So Woodrow, let's see, to answer his question. So when I was in Guantanamo Bay, I was in the we didn't really deal with like the actual like what do you call it, like the chain of command for the actual for Gitmo itself. We were on the naval base, that was the naval aspect. So I dealt with there was an admiral that was in charge of the detention center that was on Gitmo, and we dealt with him. And he was the one like we had. I remember one time we had this all call where we came in and they were talking about because Obama was talking about shutting down Guantanamo Bay, and he had just gotten back from seeing the Pentagon. And I can't remember the guy's name, but I have to go back and look it up. But that's who we dealt with. It was basically all Navy, just the Navy side. So David Finkel, I went to Great Mistakes in Illinois, so otherwise known as Great Lakes.
Great mistakes.
Yep.
And that's something else. Like you've got nicknames for the different bases, and the Army does too. Like Fort Lost in the Woods,
Yep.
Fort Stewart was always Fort Stupid. I mean, we've got nicknames for most of the bases, but you never talk shit about Fort Bragg, and I don't give a
Nope.
frig what they call it now. it'll always be Fort Bragg to me.
I don't know why they got to change the name. This is so dumb.
It's all the wokeism.
Yeah, it's that is more toxic than anything I've ever seen. It's so crazy.
Yep. David Finkel, Fort Puke, Louisiana. Yep.
Yep. No fuck Virginia.
No fuck
Norfolk.
Virginia.
I caught let's see, I caught my first ship out of No fuck Virginia. It was a USS George Washington. 97,000 tons of diplomacy was the motto.
It's funny Wrangler talks about the Chow Hall and Top. Tell you I went to basic as an MP without telling him. Fort McClellan. Need I say more?
Exactly. Oh, did you see? I think Stone Vet Point is that he's got one of those MP hats in the background now.
Yeah, that and the badge holder with
and the credentials.
It's not a real MP badge. It's the wrong shape and it's really small from what I can see from that shitty picture because his webcam is so great. Yeah, he's putting all those props up, trying to prop himself up to make people think that he was something he never was. But you know, Josh has been putting out all those shorts where Kaiser makes his military claims, and they're hilarious. He's been doing a lot of the little short stints where you can hear what Kaiser's talking about in regards to his military stuff.
Yeah. Well, and someone was saying it. I don't remember if it was in Stonefist chat or somebody's chat, but they're like, "Well, he doesn't talk about it anymore." And I'm like, I heard him a couple of lives ago talking about the guys that served under him. This man was never in a position to have anyone serve under him.
Oh no, yeah, I just and it was weird too. Some of the stories that talk about, he never talked about anybody he was with or what happened to them. It was all him. And the whole Humvee thing, I showed the photographs from when one of my guys' trucks got hit by an RPG. And there's just no kinetic energy there that's going to stop a Humvee at any speed dead in its tracks. It's not going to happen. 20 miles an hour, you're not going to stop it dead in its tracks. You're going to kill the engine and it's going to roll to a stop, I'm sure. But yeah, there's not enough kinetic energy, and it's such a small charge. I was on Wally's stream the other night, and they were taking RPG rounds and sticking them to the bottom of drones, and the Ukrainians were, and dropping them on Russian soldiers. So that was really interesting doing that with him.
So you mean the Humvees don't go 70 miles an hour?
If you drop them out of the back of an airplane, they do.
Right, exactly.
I've seen some Humvees stream in on the drop zone. Oh boy! As a matter of fact, I remember Nijmegen DZ at Fort Bragg, and we jumped, and then they dropped equipment in. And while we were at the assembly area, getting ready to come back into post, they dropped some Humvees, and there was one of them that did not have a chute deployment. So it.
Oh no!
Yeah,
hit a hole, huh? A little bit of a hole.
Yeah, it left a divot. It left a divot in the ground.
To answer Wally right fast, what lessons learned do you have for troops transitioning out in the military? Go to TAPS as many times as you can, which is the troop or the transition program for military members getting out. They give you like a week for it, but it takes so much more than a week to understand everything that you have that's afforded to you. Let's see what else. Make copies of your medical records. I didn't. I was ready to get out. I was so ready to retire that I was just ready to go. And so make copies of your medical records and get started on your VA stuff before you actually leave. And it'll be a lot better. And liquid soap or bar soap? Well, I don't drop the soap, so I go liquid for right now. I was on submarines. You don't drop the soap, even though it's just you by yourself.
Did you have to hot bunk with somebody?
I did. I hot racked. I sure did. So I was on. I want to say it was like my first sub that I was on, because I was on 2 submarines. I actually got my Dolphins, which is my submarine warfare qualification, on the first one I was on, and I we had to hot rack. So I shared a bunk with. Well, I shared. I mean, we didn't sleep together in it, right? But we had to like rotate out every couple hours.
So you didn't
So
spoon? No spooning?
no, no spooning, unfortunately, no. It was by yourself, but it was nice and warm when you got in there. So, but yeah, we had three. There was 2 other guys. We had like we rotated because we'd all worked like an 8-hour shift, and so we just like rotated out. Yep. And I got to sleep in the torpedo bay for part of my first deployment was in the torpedo bay, and so we got to sleep right next to the torpedoes. That was fun.
So here's a question: did I eat any interesting foods in Iraq? It it really wasn't interesting because they eat a lot of chicken, a lot of fresh vegetables like cut up cucumbers and tomatoes and things like that.
Yep.
But mainly chicken, rice, that kind of stuff. Because we used to go out and work with the Iraqi police. We might be out for a week at a time. And a lot of times they'd invite us to dinner. So we'd sit down with the officers, the high ranking officers of that station, and they'd bring in chicken and stuff like that. So,
That's awesome.
man, you popped off and popped in.
Yeah, it's the internet hicked up here.
But I love the bread. They cook the bread in the inside of those ovens up on the roofs,
Mm-hmm.
and the bread was amazing. It was just amazing. I really enjoyed the bread and stuff. That was good. The only unusual foods I had was when I was stationed in Korea. Some weird shit over there. Um, they used to have these little carts in the Ville, and you could sit on a stool outside this thing, and they'd have all this shit there, and they'd either cook it or not. And uh, I mean, I saw some really weird shit on those things,
I bet.
and there was bat wings and different types of other stuff, and you could end up eating dog if you weren't careful. The area
You
that
ever
I
see
was in,
the camel spiders?
I have seen camel spiders. They're not as big as portrayed on YouTube or the internet, uh, but they are pretty good size. But I did get a chance to see camel spiders.
In
Um,
Gitmo, there's a thing called banana rats, right? And they're like these like giant rodents, and they're not like super big, but I call them ROUSs, like from Princess Bride, the rodents of unusual size, and they were all over the damn place. It was crazy. That and iguanas. I had an iguana come in my room. I didn't shut my door all the way when I was in Gitmo one night, and all of a sudden the door popped open, and this iguana come walking in, took a look at me, and then walked right out. It was crazy. Yeah.
the one thing I liked
David
about
David
go
wants to know
ahead,
what your favorite defect was.
my favorite defect.
Hmm.
Uh, I wonder if he's talking about Iraq because we had a pretty decent one on Merez up in Mosul, but when I went, I had to take a prisoner um, south down to Crit, and then I was trying to get back to my unit, and I got bounced all over the place, and I ended up at one of the Air Force defects at one of the air bases because the flight I was on got diverted, and uh, we went to one of the bigger Air Force bases, and man, the
Hmm.
food was amazing.
Yeah.
Not to mention they had all of the fast food joints there too. It was like Disney World because the Air Force, they got to have it's going to be Disneyland if it's run by the Air Force.
I
They
was just about
actually
to
had
say the same
china
thing.
plates and silverware where we weren't using a spork to cut our steak and lobster.
Well, and so like, and I was just about to comment on that because when I first got stationed in San Antonio, because I was on a what do you call it? Like it was on an annex of Lackland Air Force Base, right, is where we actually did our work. And so I was in the barracks at Lackland Main Site. They call it Lackland Main Site off of Security Hill for those that know Lackland. And I went to the DFAC over there to the chow hall, and I was sitting there, and I was like, number one, they just had like the options were crazy. I was like, what the hell? Because I was just used to like the Navy stuff we had, and DLI wasn't bad. DLI was pretty good, but this was just like blew my mind, right? And so I went through and I got my food, and I was sitting down and I was eating. I got done, and I was like looking for a place to put my tray and stuff, and I was like, so I asked one of the people working there. I was like, hey, where do I take this to? And they're like, oh, don't worry, someone will come get it. And I was like, what? Oh, oh, this is what the Air Force is like. Oh, amazing.
Yeah, the Air Force, they live good. Yeah, Glenn Harlow wasn't working hard for us. We had nothing but contract people that were overseen by like
Yep.
an E6 or an E7 mess sergeant, and they were all KBR workers that did all the cooking, unless you were on a remote cop or something like that. And then that unit usually had cooks assigned to them, and
Yeah.
basically what they were feeding you was fucking T-rats, the big trays that they heat up. So, yeah, working hard. He wasn't making any fucking tater tots, I'll tell you that.
Oh,
Yep. Air Force always has nice stuff. Always has nice stuff.
oh, yeah, Burns, you're right. Yeah, and if you know Security Hill, where that's at, right down the road and across the street is this horrible little strip club, and it's bad. It's real bad. And of course, here's the deal, Master. You know a strip club is bad when you walk in and there's no glass anywhere. Everything you get, all your cups and shot glasses are all plastic.
Ah, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yep. And that's why they keep the lights low.
Yep, that's very true. And like when you have to get when the what do you call them, the operators there have to get quarters from the crowd so they can put it in the jukebox behind them on the dance stage. Yep. I mean that's a classy place right there. Classy.
I had to go get training. I think it was like on the Blue Force trackers,
Hmm.
and it was in Pennsylvania. I can't remember the name of the depot. There was nothing there. It was like in the fucking middle of nowhere, and there was five of us, and we had a government van, and we all got in the government van and went looking for a strip club, and we found one little strip club out in the middle of nowhere. And one of the captains that was with us was like completely shit faced, and he's hanging all over this stripper. And the next day, we found a website for that strip club, and we showed him the picture of that girl, and he was like, "Oh my god, thank God, you guys saved me from myself."
Oh
Uh,
man.
oh man, even with the makeup on, she was handsome.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what? And I think we all have these kind of stories. So I was in Panama one time. The times I was in Panama, we were down there. I think this was when I was on the USS McCluskey back in 2008. It was a frigate before we sold them all to India, right? And we had pulled into port in Panama. We were out there. Of course, they wanted to go to all the clubs and stuff. And there's not really strip clubs in Latin America. It's most likely just houses of ill repute, right? And so we go into this one place, and one of my buddies, he's a chief. He was hitting on this girl, and he wanted me to ask her because he didn't speak Spanish. Wanted me to ask her how long she'd been working there. Now you imagine these girls work like at least 6 days a week, good, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day, right? um, weighing pipe or getting pipe laid. And so he wanted me to ask her. She was a real pretty girl. She was Colombian, and she was there. And I asked her, I said, how long has she been working there? 7 years, 6 days a week at least, maybe 7 in a row. And I was like, man, that's a lot of pipe.
Yeah, that's like a hot dog down the hallway.
Yeah, Grand Canyon maybe by the time.
And right, son, you're right. There is a Michael Kaiser, U.S. Army. He was a captain, I believe. Last I saw, he might have been promoted. He might still be in. I don't know. Um, and that name got confused with Wrangler as well because their birth dates are very similar. Um,
Oh, when
and
you finally got the right birthday because he kept giving out the wrong one on purpose, supposedly.
well, they gave this other guy's birth date, basically.
Oh wow.
And when I started doing the Defense Manpower database, I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. It's showing active duty. And then I reached out to Steve Anson over on Guardians of the Green Beret
Mm-hmm.
and had him, he's got assets that are able to check ATARS, which is the Army training system.
Mm-hmm.
And he could check for anybody that's ever been in any military school ever. And he says, yeah, he's in there twice for basic training, and he was a dropout both times. So,
You know, you figure with everything that's been going on, you know, with the Green Beret guys, and then of course, the SEAL stuff and everything happening, that you wouldn't want to pretend to have a military career because everyone's on the lookout for that stuff now, right? This isn't the
yeah,
'90s, right?
yeah, and it's pretty prevalent too. I mean, a lot of people watch Don Shipley, and everybody's
Yep.
like, "You should get Don Shipley on this."
He only does
Don
SEAL.
has got better things to do than deal with Wrangler.
Yep.
Wrangler's not portraying himself to be a Navy SEAL. That's
Correct.
mainly what Don deals with. Every now and then he gets involved with special operations or special forces. But yeah, right. So KFAR put out the fake birthday.
Okay.
Good job, KFAR. I loved it. I saw where he replied to some. He was tagged in somebody's video the other day, and he's like, "Why'd you tag me in this? I'm not a drama channel, really." Mr. Drama Llama himself. What do you call it when you watch somebody else's video and talk shit about them?
Yeah, exactly.
What is that? What is that? Is that anything other than drama? I mean, really?
Was it Stone Fed says I'm just a dude watching another dude talk about another dude, right?
Yeah, talking about another dude, talking about another dude, watching a dude who's talking about another dude. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Hey, we've been going just over an hour. Um, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your experiences.
Thank you
Uh,
for reaching out and having me on, Master Art. It's been my
yeah,
pleasure, honestly.
yeah. I really enjoy it. I love hearing about people's military careers and what they did, and it's great. You spent your time. You retired. You're kind of going into my line of work here pretty quick, and
Hmm.
best of luck with that, my friend.
Thank you
Um,
very much.
just if I can impart anything on anybody that is ever thinking about a law enforcement career, just remember it's not about you.
Hmm.
Nothing, take nothing personal because it's not about you, it's about the uniform you wear. And when you get that ingrained in you and you realize that they're not directing that shit at you, it's what you represent. And if you can keep that in the back of your mind, it'll make it a lot easier. You'll be able to de-escalate a lot easier,
Hmm.
and it just makes the job so much better.
That's one of
Um,
and I kind of one of the craziest things I've learned from watching all of these frauditor videos and things like that, and watching them just like berate these cops is watching these cops sit there and go, okay, yeah, okay, you can call me that, you can threaten to sue me, you can do all this kind of stuff, and they don't lose their cool. And I was like, that's exactly how I want to be, right? When if once I get through the academy and stuff and actually start working the streets, is I want to maintain that composure because I am setting the example for everyone looking on about what a good cop is supposed to be, right?
exactly, exactly. I mean, 30 years ago, they never would have got away with any of this shit.
Yeah.
They would have got lumped up and cuffed up, and that would have been it. Because way back in the day, I know a lot of guys that could talk anybody into a disorderly conduct charge.
Yeah.
Um, but it's evolved so much in the last 30, 40 years to where it is today. And I think 99% of the guys out there are doing the right thing and they're good cops. And then you get that
Mhm.
1%, of course, that's going to be the bad guys. And that's what everybody focuses on. Anyway, thanks again. I appreciate it. Everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much. Remember, next week I'm going to have a crayon eater on here, as evident by the mouse pad he gave me with the staff sergeant cross crayons on it. I'll have a picture of that for next week. He runs a nonprofit for veterans, and it should be a good show next week. Again, Navy Techs, thanks so much. And I'm going to play
Thank you,
my
sir.
intro one more time, just because only
It's so bad.
Frauds
It's awesome.
and Scotto did such an awesome job with it. And hey, you
All right,
guys
I'm gonna
have
go ahead and bounce out, my sergeant. Y'all have a good one.
all right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody, make sure you have yourself a great day.
So I met this chick at the bar.
Yeah?
Oh, she was hot. She was just like, hey,
Oh, man,
you just want to
that's
fuck?
awesome.
And I was like, yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
CIB. Hey, where'd you earn that CIB at?
The PX? What? It's not stolen valor. I bought it with my. Oh!